about your love changes everything. Changes everything. Something about your love. Something about your love changes everything. Something about your love. Something about your love changes everything. Changes everything. Something about your love. Something about your love changes everything. Changes everything. Something about your love. Something about your love changes everything. You turn my morning into dancing. 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 Something about your love. Something about your love changes everything.
Good morning, Rudiman. Good to be with you. It's Tuesday. We have a whole week of no Tom, so we have to really be careful and behave. It's always a pleasure, for sure. And sometimes I never get in trouble, so we're okay. I'm very well behaved.
Oh, please don't lie.
All right, so let's start out. Chuck B's here with us this morning, and Dave Donnelly. Good morning, Dave. Ken Gooch. Chris Connolly's here. We got quite a few people online here. It's like crazy. Bert Reggiani.
Hi, Bert.
It says Maureen. Might be Steve. I don't know. It might be Maureen. Okay, and we have Eric and Jody. Good morning, Jody. And sorry, Wimper. Yeah, I get it. It's okay. Sometimes you hit them right, sometimes you don't. All right. Let me get rid of that one. Okay. Anyway, we're glad to see everybody here. It still looks like a beautiful day ahead of us. Good morning, Diane from Bert. Yeah, she's in the background. Sometimes I got to get me a private office.
I'm always working.
What can I call it? The studios of Oxford. Good morning, Corey. Glad you're with us this morning. Yeah. Privacy isn't necessarily a thing here. I'm doing this in the dining room. It's kind of my spot. We have a bedroom for grandkids. We have a bedroom for crafts, and no office for Steve.
No office.
It's feel bad for Steve morning. All right. This morning's verses are from Second Corinthians. Wow, that one doesn't. I guess I didn't realize how quickly we got into that second book. But Paul's still struggling with the church in Corinth. It's kind of a the first part of chapter 2 is kind of a continuation of chapter 1, where he was struggling with the people questioning his authority and why he was changing his plans hither, dither. And let's just get into it. If I can find the right button and we can pull it up. It looks like it. Hopefully everybody can read it. All right. There we are. So I made up my mind that I would not make another painful visit to you. For if I grieve you, who is left to make me glad but you whom I have grieved? I wrote as I did so that when I came, I would not be distressed by those who should have made me rejoice. I have confidence in all of you that you would all share my joy. For I wrote you out of great distress and anguish of heart, and with many tears, not to grieve you, but to let you know the depth of my love for you. If anyone has caused grief, he has not so much grieved me as he has grieved all of you to some extent. Not to put it too severely. I kind of like the way he did that. That's I hear myself talking because I'll say that sometimes. You know, you kind of add something to the end of it to make it sound less intimidating. Paul's continuing this. He's continuing with chapter 1, and his fear is that his presence might have caused some conflict or anger or problems. And he describes his last meeting there as painful. Now, who hasn't been there? It's widely considered that there was another letter between the 1 Corinthians and this one that he wrote to the church with that specific problem in mind. They can't find it, of course, but that's the opinion of a lot of theologians that's exactly what was going on here. There's another letter in there that we don't have context to, which would have really probably been helpful. It's pretty obvious that from his words and all this, that we're looking at it, he cared a lot about this church in Corinth. It was important to him that they succeeded. Yeah. He really, really, really wanted reconciliation and cooperation, maybe is a good word. But then he chose to wait a bit before he came back to let cooler heads prevail, maybe to calm the situation. Today's church leaders are in the same situation, aren't they? Really? I mean, we get people come into a church and they'll be there for 10 years and they feel like they're part of it, or maybe their family's been in this church for 50 years and they feel that they have a right to question everything a pastor does. We know pastors don't last 50 years usually, but there are rare occasions, but most churches, there's some turnover after a while. But people will come into a church or expect the church to do certain things a certain way, maybe because that's the way they've always done them. Okay. Maybe their mother played organ when the church was first built, and they feel that they have some authority, I guess would be a good word, that they have some say in how things are done. And I think we see that in the church here, that there's probably some pushes and pulls. Somebody that was with the church in the very beginning is starting to flex their muscle and trying to push things in a certain direction. And Paul's saying, no, this is, you don't, it's not our direction, it's God's direction. Maybe they had more status in the community that would give them power, like a person will give great sums of money to a church and expects that they get their way. I've seen this in the past in a congregation not too far from here, that one guy would say, would pull a pastor aside and say, you know who I am, you know how much I give this church. You better start listening to me. I think we lose all spiritual guidance and anything spiritual about us, and we start looking at our money as a source of power. We see politicians go to churches, and the church will change their beliefs just to fit that political narrative. There's so many things that a church can step into something they probably should stay out of. And Paul's so worried about that. And he's willing to to sacrifice his friendships and the heartache that comes with these friendships and rebuke them and say, no, we don't do it this way. One dissenting voice can create a lot of conflict. One dissenting voice we've seen it in churches where they get themselves an army. They're upset about something. So then they talk to their best friend and say, this is what they're doing to me. And we see this, and we got to understand, we got to watch, be on guard for that. We got to talk about it, put it out in the open, that people are flawed. We know that. And we love them, but we know that we have to be careful with our words, because we can. It's one thing if you get frustrated with where you're at, and you get frustrated with not getting your way, but to burn down the bridge before you get to it. You know, God's church is still God's church, and we need to really, really be. I love the fact that we use homothumadon in our church, one mind. You come to our church meetings. If you ever come to a church meeting or a church, like we have an elders board meeting, and we'll sit and talk, we always look for the one-mindedness in the meeting. One dissenting voice is a dissenting voice, and we work hard to get everybody on the same page. But what I love is we don't do is a 5-4 vote about something. There's no winner in a situation. 5 people are happy, 4 people aren't. So we always work toward not doing that. We always work toward coming together as a group and finding the common ground and then working forward. And trust me, it's not the most efficient way to do something. It can lead to months of discussion and arguing, but it is so important and so necessary for a church to really be in that one mind where we're all moving forward. And that doesn't mean we browbeat somebody into agreeing with us. I mean, that's the thing, is we have to, if you're in the majority, it is important that we also take the time to hear the other person's complaint and issue and address it and try to find a common ground in it. That's what I have for you today, guys. Paul's looking for common ground. Paul's looking for a way to get the church back on track and not create any conflict. He's being careful, but as you can notice, he didn't scold any one person by name. He never, through this whole bit of scripture, you won't see a name. You'll say a person. You'll see something along that lines. But that's all there is.
Okay.
That's what I have for you. Thank you so much for being with me today. Anybody else? No, I think Corey was the last one. So now we can go over here, and I push a button here. And can I say, it was a pleasure. Have a firmly rooted day, and may someone see Jesus in you today.